Good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whatever time it is. We're so glad that you're joining us. I'm the Reverend Sheryl Butler, and this is Journey Road Ministries, where we seek to do justice, love kindness, and walk humbly with God. Normally, we will do a sermon, a song and a sermon, and I think today we'll do like a sermon and a song. Today is July 25th, and we'll read the gospel reading for today from John chapter 6, verses 1 through 21. After Jesus went to the other side of the Sea of Galilee, also called the Sea of Tiberias, a large crowd kept following him because they saw the signs that he was doing for the sick. Jesus went up the mountain and sat down there with his disciples. Now the Passover, the festival of the Jews, was near. When he looked up and saw a large crowd coming toward him, Jesus said to Philip, "Where are we to buy bread for these people to eat?" He said, "This is to test him," for he knew himself knew what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 6 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each of them to get a little. One of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, said to him, "There's a boy here who has 5 barley loaves and 2 fish. But what are they among so many people?" Jesus said, "Make the people sit down." Now there was a great deal of grass in the place, so they sat down, about 5,000 in all. Then Jesus took the loaves, and when he had given thanks, he distributed them to those who were seated, so also the fish, as much as they wanted. When they were satisfied, he told his disciples, "Gather up the fragments left over, so that none may be lost." So they gathered them up, and from the fragments of the 5 barley loaves they left by those who had eaten, they filled 12 baskets. When the people saw the sign that he had done, they began to say, "This is indeed the prophet who is to come into the world." When Jesus realized that they were about to come and take him by force to make him king, he withdrew again to the mountain by himself. When evening came, his disciples went down to the sea, got into a boat, and started across the sea to Capernaum. It was now dark, and Jesus had not yet come to them. The sea became rough because a strong wind was blowing. When they rowed about 3 or 4 miles, they saw Jesus walking on the sea and coming near the boat, and they were terrified. But he said to them, "It is I. Do not be afraid." Then they wanted to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the land toward which they were going. Thus ends the reading of the gospel. So I have a confession. I am a heretic. I was not always. In my 20s, I was quite the Christian apologist. I remember trying to save my father. Now, my father grew up in the Methodist Church, but had become unhappy with the church and religion. However, he was a very spiritual person who actually lived the teachings of Christ. But since he had rejected the orthodox teachings of the church, I was going to help him see the error of his thinking. And he would listen to me very patiently. But he finally told me that I almost convinced him. Almost, but I never did. My father passed away this spring, and he would have been 95 yesterday, July 24th. In the end, I discovered my father was right about spiritual matters, and he showed me this not by telling me, but by the way he lived his life. His life was a life of service to all, As a doctor, he compassionately healed all who came to him. As a father, he was loving, supportive, and a great teacher. As a teacher, he was tough but fair. As a citizen, he was involved in his community. As a friend, he was kind and always had time to listen. He loved people, and people loved him. He believed in God and the life and teachings of Jesus. He rejected religious doctrines and rules. The loving God he knew would never condemn anyone to a place like hell. So in the end, my father convinced me, and I am no longer a Christian apologist. In fact, today I think it's rather arrogant for us to think God needs apologists. I've come since to see God as an encompassing reality or spirit. In the words from the book of Acts, God is the one in whom we live and move and have our being. And as Marcus Borg noted, we are in God like fish are in water. So today I am a heretic, but I think I am in good company, which would include Jesus. So last time I shared about the parables, stories told by Jesus, and there are stories about Jesus, and offered the thought that Jesus is the parable of God, and we should pay attention to the story read today about Jesus feeding the 5,000. It's the only story that shows up in all 4 Gospels. And whether or not you believe the event actually happened, there is always a larger truth to be learned. I recently read a story that really spoke to this story about a woman, Barb, stopped to grab a water, and on the way, she saw a homeless man she knew sitting in the shade with his bike beside him. He was red-faced and shaky looking. Barb asked if he was okay, and he told her that he was just resting. And she shared that this guy's got the mind of a child, and he doesn't know he needs to stay extra hydrated when it's super hot outside. And there are a bunch of people in line in front of her in the store, and only one cashier. So Barb grabbed 2 waters and yelled to the cashier that she was taking one to the guy outside and she'd be right back, says she was a regular there. And when Barb came back in, there's a lady in front of her turned around, hands on hips, and told Barb that she was just enabling that homeless person and that she shouldn't be wasting her money on him. Now, it was hot as heck in Florida at the time, mid-90s, with humidity around 80%. It's a good day for heat stroke. And Barb told her so and said she'd rather give him a water than call an ambulance. Now, Barb was just going to shrug it off and let it go, chalk it up to ignorance and the heat making everybody a little bit cranky. But then this woman told Barb that she should be ashamed of herself, that someone should call the police on him, and that it should be illegal to beg for money, that people who give homeless money just encourage them to stay homeless, and that should be illegal too. Ashamed? She should be ashamed for giving some poor old guy a water. It cost a whole $1, by the way. And she should get in trouble for making sure he didn't stroke out in this heat. Well, Barb normally is approachable and a nice person, but suddenly lost her temper. And Barb told this woman to call a cop and report her for buying stuff at a convenience store. Barb told her that she wasn't in the mood for crazy right now, that it's 100 effing degrees outside, and she was hot and tired and sick to death of stupid people, that if she had an ounce of compassion in her whole body, she'd buy him a cold drink too. That maybe she should figure out why she needs to accost complete strangers. Well, Barb, being somewhat hard of hearing, was very loud when she said this, so all of a sudden there was dead silence in the store. And then someone said loudly, "For real!" And the guy at the front of the line told the cashier to add a sandwich to his purchases for the guy outside. And the guy behind him bought an extra ice cream. And the girl behind him got change for a 20, because that guy could probably use some cash. Every single person in line got him something. Everyone except the now very embarrassed lady in front of her, who slunk out without saying another word. When Barb got to the cashier, that cashier didn't charge her for either of the waters, because she was going to take one out to the homeless guy anyway, and Barb's was free because of the entertainment. So when Barb went outside, the homeless guy was eating his ice cream and drinking his water with a pile of stuff all around him and a big old grin on his face. He didn't look shaky anymore. Certainly a miracle for this homeless man. So I think one of the messages of this parable is that it's never about having enough. It's always about distribution. Jesus was never concerned with why people are hungry. He just fed them. He was never concerned with why people were sick. He just healed them. Too often I hear God being blamed. Well, we didn't put the world together like this. God did. And you might hear today's version as the invisible hand, which Adam Smith proposed in his work, The Wealth of Nations, which was back in the 18th century, actually. He basically said that if government gets out of the way, an invisible hand will control things for the greater good of everyone. But it seems that the invisible hand always has this one finger raised. So if we see Jesus as the parable of God, then we can understand God as loving and compassionate. We are to be the hands and feet and voice of God in the world. We are to love as God loves. And in John 3:16, we're told that for God so loved the world. God loved the whole world, the whole of creation. So as Christians, we cannot simply offer thoughts and prayers. We are to feed the hungry, give drink to the thirsty, clothe the naked, visit the prisoner without judgment or expectations. We should be willing to pay a little extra so our neighbor will have health care. In John 15:12 and 13, Jesus tells his disciples, "My command is this, love each other as I have loved you. Greater love has no one than this, to lay down one's life for one's friends." So we should at least be willing to be a little inconvenienced by wearing a mask to protect our neighbor during a pandemic. Now, if you identify as a Christian and do not understand these things, and what it means to be Christ in the world, and I suggest perhaps you should reread your Bible. And if you can't find it, you can read it free online. Otherwise, you ought to just throw it away and stop claiming that you are a Christian. Think about it. And now we're going to finish with a song. You have a blessed and joyful week.
was building a beer can castle at the end of the bar. He said, "Bud, we'd better get wiser, 'cause we've gone too far. We've got the Jews and the Muslims, the isms, the wasms, and 10,000 flavors of Christian. God save us all from religion." Well, I sat there stunned as he took a sip of his beer. See, that barroom philosopher said, "Friend, ain't the truth mighty clear? See, there's a preacher on TV who's Pharisee greedy, and he thinks he's a hot politician. God save us all from religion. And ain't it a shame how the world's gone insane, how we hate and we hurt and we kill in God's name? And heaven above knows the answer is love, but it's sure hard to find it down here. We've got wolves in sheep's clothing, and hypocrites, liars and fools. They say you can't go to heaven if you don't abide by their rules. Remember, religion crucified Jesus when love was his only mission. God save us all from religion. And ain't it a shame how the world's gone insane, how we hate and we hurt and we kill in God's name? And heaven above knows the answer is love, but it's sure hard to find it down here. He kept adding cans to his castle till it finally fell. He said, "Friend, left up to religion, I'd go straight to hell. But through mercy and faith and God's saving grace, I know that I am forgiven. God save us all from religion. Oh my God, save us all from religion."